What's up, good people? We're back with another fun and exciting episode of Business Growth Time. Today, we're going to talk to a guy that helps millennials make millions. I might have made some of that up, but I like the way it sounds. But before we get in there introducing Brandon Fong, let me say hello to our longtime friend, good podcast partner, Facebook woman extraordinaire, and all-around great lady, Janet E. Johnson, where today the E stands for entanglement.
Ooh, I don't know where that came from, but okay.
It came from Jada Pinkett Smith, baby. She had entanglements.
Entanglement.
And
Just
it's an
reminds me of the
E-word.
movie Tangled for some reason. But,
Is it because of my long hair? I don't know if you notice how long my hair is these days, but it's getting out there, It's kind of
this
cool.
part's getting out there. By the way,
This
I'm talking about
part's
his beard,
trimmed up.
those of you listening.
That's true. You're good? You're happy? Life is good?
Yeah,
well?
it's been good. I actually had a little depressing day yesterday where my cat got super sick and is in the hospital. And you know I love my cats. So
I'm sorry.
She's good though. I called this morning and all good news. She was so bad off that I couldn't even take a picture of her to send anyone because it was so disgusting. Like,
Ooh,
yeah, it was
gross.
bad. And I thought she was maybe going to die, but yep. She's good. And yeah, so I'm happy. But yeah, I love my cats. I have 3. So
that's true. She does. True facts, people. All right. Well, tell Ernie and the rest of us a little bit about Brandon, and let's figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah. Well, Brandon reached out to me through email. We could talk a little bit about, how he came on the show. And I was reading his bio, and I kind of want him to explain his story. But currently what he's doing is he has a new brand called Figure Millennials. And he's on a mission to help 10,000 millennial entrepreneurs to build wealth through the power of connection while prioritizing their health and relationships. And I do have to add to this, Terry, we're too old for this group. So
there's that.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here, guys.
Yeah, glad to have you for sure. I want to hear the back of your story because it was interesting. I read it, but I just want you to explain it a little bit more.
Yeah, so I always like to start from the very, very beginning. So I grew up where I went to middle school, and my least favorite part of the entire school day is when I would go through the lunch line and all my friends would be behind me, and I would try to do everything I possibly could to prevent them from seeing when I went through the lunch checkout, a big 0 would show up on my screen showing that my family qualified for free and reduced lunch. So I would hide in the bathroom. I would try to do something goofy so they wouldn't see the screen. So I was always super embarrassed by the fact that my family didn't make that much money growing up. So it kind of put this little chip on my shoulder for me to constantly try to figure out ways to solve problems, even though I didn't have the resources. So I learned how to get really resourceful. So from a very young age, if I didn't if I wanted to get contacts, for example, my parents couldn't pay for glasses, I had to figure out a way to sell my Wii or my Pokemon cards or, whatever it was so I can get the contacts and stuff like that. So back then I was super frustrated at my parents, but then I realized how powerful it was to be in that situation and that they taught me from an early age that it was all about the power of connection. It was all about who you know, how to connect with people. And if you know the right people, you can get out of any potential situation. So I'm so they used to take me out of school as a 16-year-old. We were talking, Janet, earlier about your 16-year-old. They used to pull me out of school and let me go to networking events when I was at that age. And so I was super grateful, to be introduced. So that's kind of how I got started in the entrepreneurial journey, because I knew I just wanted to make things different for myself. And I was excited of the possibility of creating a future where I had control instead of being influenced by the environment and have nothing that I could do to influence it. So that was my initial inspiration for entrepreneurship. And then I headed off to college and I had one goal, and that was to launch a successful venture by the time I graduated. So freshman year, launched something, found out that my co-founder was using some of the money that we made to pay for his college tuition. So that ended up not going so well. And then a year later, I'm like, I'm going to write a book.
I think everybody's been there.
Yeah. And the awkward part is he was my roommate. So that made the rest of the semester kind of disastrous. But so that kind of ended that chapter. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go study abroad. So I studied abroad, ended up writing a book, became a bestseller on Amazon, was featured by the Huffington Post. I even got a review from original Shark on Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington. And I was like, this is it. This is going to be my thing. I got this book now. I sound so cool. I'm a 20-year-old, and it still wasn't enough to sustain me by the time I graduated. So then I hit my senior year and I'm like, what do I do now? Like I already tried this first startup. My book isn't where it wants to be. So like, what should I do? So I ended up saying, oh, well, what if instead of reinventing the wheel, I just found somebody who's exactly where I wanted to be and find a way to work directly with them, learn the ins and outs of the businesses that I want to run. And so that was my newest approach. So I ended up finding an entrepreneur. His name was Jonathan Levy. He was he has a podcast with over 3 million downloads.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've heard that name before. Yeah.
Yeah. He's TED Talk, over 250,000 students at his online courses. So I was like, okay, here I am, this college student. How can I reach out and add value to him? So I sent him an email and I was like, I'm a huge fan of your show. These are all the things that I want to do. I don't want to be paid for any of it. And I just want to help out. So he was kind of just like, yeah, I guess. What else can you say to that? And I came up with like a full audit on his site. So I ended up working for him, and that turned into an incredible 3-year relationship where I ended up running the marketing for his entire business, working on how to improve the customer experience. And then from that point on, the floodgates just opened. Jonathan introduced me. He ended up getting into a mastermind called Genius Network. 7-figure plus entrepreneurs are in there. There's some elite people in there. And he basically was like, I just want Brandon in. So I got to be the youngest group member of this group called Genius Network at 22 years old. And it kind of goes back to the very beginning when I was 16 years old and my parents would pull me out of these class so that I could go to these networking events at 16. I was always used to being the youngest in the room. And so it was just another story of me being the youngest in the room and working like that. So yeah, that's a kind of concise version of my story, but I'm happy to dive into any aspects and show anybody, whether they're a millennial or, other generations, to how to connect in more meaningful ways, because I always believe that you're just one connection away from anything that you want, whether it be growing your business, your relationships, your health, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool. Terry's a huge networker, so
yeah,
he can speak to that too. So Terry, I'm going to let you comment on what your thoughts are.
You're just, yeah, you so speaking my language right now, man.
Awesome.
Your thought process about the idea of finding someone that's where you want to go, and then offering and asking how you can be of value to them, dude, that hit me right here. Like, that's the approach. And if people learn anything from this, it's learn that, right?
Yeah.
Learn that you can go out, connect with someone that's doing what you want to do. And if you approach it the right way, the only thing they can say is, hell yeah, come along for the ride, man. I'll show you everything I know. Right? It's when you don't do it that way, when you come at them and you're like, I know all these different things and I can make you so much better and I'm gonna do this and you're gonna pay me X. And people are like, bro, you haven't even walked in my shoes for 4 seconds. How about you shut the hell up? Right? So I like how you came at him, and I can't imagine he'd say anything other than, yeah, I guess, right? Because how could you say no to that? So that's cool. And you made me think of a dude named Adam Zintarski, who has not been on this show, but he's here in the Detroit area and does a lot of work in the blockchain space. And we probably should have him on at some point. But he first showed up to one of my Motor City Connect networking meetings when he was about 16 years old as a web developer. And he got a couple of pieces of business. Why? Because everybody was just so enamored with the fact that there was a 16-year-old guy at this event. So you just stand out, man. And it's all about playing in traffic and being where people are. So great job.
Yeah, thanks so much. I guess there's 2 things I would love to, add on to what you just said there. The first thing is, like, when people have this false conception, right? They say, oh, I'm too young, I can't do anything. And then what happens one day? You become too old, right?
Yep.
So it's like, there's, no matter what, you're going to find an excuse to actually prevent yourself from taking action. So, don't let it stop you, no matter where you are in life. I think that you can always find an excuse, but there's always a way to spin it in a way that it's an advantage for you.
I agree. Yep. Exactly. So tell me, your parents bringing you to business networking events at that age, what did they do? Or what did they do at that time to do it, networking events?
Yeah, so I come from a line of entrepreneurs, actually. So if I were to own a restaurant, I forget what generation restaurant owner I'd be, but my grandpa owned a restaurant and my dad was raised by the restaurant. They forgot about his 9th birthday because the restaurant was going on. And so he was raised by the restaurant. He had a restaurant. I grew up as the little kid behind the scenes that, wasn't supposed to be up in front of the customers, where there'd be like the line where the soda was and they would see like a hand come up on top over the counter to get the soda or whatever, just like be quiet in the back. So like, so I come from a line of restaurant owners, and then my parents were in financial services growing up. And so that's kind of the networking philosophy that I've always seen. And they're just so great. They're incredible people, always looking at connecting and adding value to people. So that was, like I said, very blessed that they introduced that to me at a young age.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah. It's very interesting. Well, that's, I want to move then to, unless Terry has any more to say on that, let's move on to talking about what you're currently doing right now for millennials. Let's talk about your current project.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear like what that is and how it works and all that.
100%. So I'll tell a little bit more about I guess where I left off in my story that will kind of lead back to what I'm doing right now. So ended up working with Jonathan for 3 years, saw the ins and outs of what it's like to run a 7-figure business and be in charge of the marketing aspect of everything. And Jonathan and I still have a fantastic relationship. He just got married. He's having a kid. So very excited for him. And so he's kind of starting to go a different route. And I just decided, it's time for me to probably go off on my own. So one of the things that I just don't like about today's day and age is I see so many Facebook ads. I see so much stuff out there where they appeal to the young crowd with like the Lambo in the back and the babes on the top of the car and like flashing this huge lifestyle about how amazing it is to have money. And I've seen what it's like to be in Genius Network and in high level entrepreneurs. And I just see that if you chase the wrong things from the very beginning, it leads to a life of dissatisfaction and unhappiness. So the reason why I created 7-Figure Millennials is I wanted to create a group of millennial entrepreneurs that are chasing big financial goals, not for the money, but for what it will make of them to achieve it. There's a quote by Jim Rohn: become a millionaire, not for the $1 million, but for what it will make of you to achieve it. So it's this group that I'm creating of people that are inspired to pursue entrepreneurship for becoming a better person, for serving others, and not working millions of hours and neglecting your health and relationships. And I just think it's a community that needs to exist, because I've seen, like I said, people end up the wrong way when they're chasing the wrong thing. So why not start off from the right perspective of being surrounded with people who are in entrepreneurship for the right reasons? So right now I'm starting out I got a free Facebook group that I'm about to launch. I have a waiting list of people ready to come in. And this is the brand that I'm looking at serving when it comes to building this community, and new products and courses are about to come out on that topic as well.
Very cool. Yeah. A couple of people come to mind. I won't say names.
It's interesting to me. How do you get, who's that?
I said Ty. You guys would finish the last name.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Bueno. Hey,
yeah, and then Gary Vee is the hustle. I know what you're talking about, and I don't think it's bad, but I mean, I do agree with you. Like later in life, I've been doing this like over 20 years. So, and Terry too. I mean, we both have, and family's gotta, you gotta put a line to things, and the hustle. I hustle when I work, but you also got to take the time for your family too, So
and the other thing I see that I'm excited to start a conversation around is I see so much dissatisfaction for entrepreneurship. And Tony Robbins talks about this. It's like the ultimate failure is succeeding without feeling fulfilled. And like, I see that amongst so many entrepreneurial levels. It's like, you could be crushing it and they're just devastated inside and just like hollow and empty. So like, and it takes a lot to get there. I'm still working on it every single day, but like I finish the day, I'm counting my wins. I'm trying to figure out ways to make sure that I'm reinforcing and being happy with my progress, because it's easy to just push yourself to the limits and then just end up feeling super depressed and successful. And so that's a trap that I want to help people avoid as well.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you in a little secret, Brandon.
Sure.
You won't find happiness anywhere until you find it inside first.
100%.
Right. So what happens is we go chase success after success, joy after joy, peace after peace, whatever after whatever. Right. We're always looking for it externally. It's in here, man.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. You're the first person I've ever asked this question on a podcast. How old are you?
24.
24. Okay, so you are at the low end of millennial, right? You're like one of the youngest millennials there are, right?
Yep,
You're
I barely made the cutoff.
You made it, but you made it.
I made it.
So you have a wisdom and an experience level, at least in terms of what you've consumed, that puts you at the scale of like a 50-year-old person that's been doing some soul searching and some seeking. I appreciate the heck out of that. What led you to taking a deeper dive into that as opposed to Pokemon Go or Twitch or something else that other folks might be more interested in?
I think similarly to how my parents got me interested into networking at an early age. It's funny. I was thinking about this for the first time the other day. I was looking at a book section in the library, and it's funny. It never really occurred to me, but if you think about the sections in the library or a bookstore, it's always business and self-development. It's like the same thing. So it's like, as I kind of started getting into business and entrepreneurship and getting into networking events, it was just a natural lead in to, working on myself through self-improvement. So I'm a huge podcast nerd. That's why it's such an honor to be on podcasts. I listen to all my stuff on 2x speed. So if I speak really fast, that's why. No, I'm just kidding. So I mean, I do
1.5 because it gets too fast.
It depends. There's a Google Chrome extension. I'm a huge tool guy. There's a Google Chrome extension called Video Speed Controller, and I listen up to 4 times on videos when I can read lips. So like you can go really fast.
Wow.
But so yeah, I guess that's led to it. It's just like, I was reading my first self-improvement books when I was 12 before I was going into those networking events. And it's just like, I've been steeped in it my whole life. And so I'm super grateful, super blessed to have been raised in an environment where my parents were constantly showing me, and encouraging me to become the best version of myself. And that really just kind of led to, when you're listening from 12 to 24, I guess that's still 12 years of experience in self-improvement. Add in the 2x speed factor. I consume a lot of content. And I truly believe also that proximity is power. So the more that I can get myself to higher levels to connect with more people, it just forces me to evolve at an even higher level. I just got into another high-end mastermind. You have to have experience with running 7-figure businesses or own a 7-figure business. And it's just like, I'm constantly looking at making myself uncomfortable. And like when you're uncomfortable, it forces so much growth. And like I said, I'm used to being the youngest in the room, and it just forces me to play at a bigger and a higher level. And so I'm always looking for ways that I can force myself out of my comfort zone. And I think the constant growth for entrepreneurship and surrounding myself with the right people definitely have contributed a lot to what I've been able to build as far as mental models go.
I've been listening to a lot of Stoic philosophy lately, right? Because in tough times, you got to go back to the basics. And in my mind, there's nothing more basic than Stoicism. Because it allows such a clear perspective. And one of the things I was listening today was from Epictetus, and he was talking about the idea that if you don't go and spend time with the successful people, and I think he used the word worship them, right? But what he meant was surround yourself with them, understand them, take time to be with them, learn from them. If you don't spend the time, if you don't put in the energy, if you don't put in the effort to absorb what they know, you can't expect to have what they have. So the idea that you're doing that is, again, this is impressive to me.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's cool you said that. I don't know where I was listening to it, but they were talking about the model of our education system today, and they were reflecting it back on the Florentine days of like the Renaissance, and how the best learners, the best people that created incredible art, all they were doing was apprenticing underneath all the greats, right? Like Michelangelo, Donatello, and like they would just have these opportunities to be in the workshops, watching them and just constantly creating. And so, yeah, like you said, the Stoic wisdom is some of the best, oldest stuff out there. And it's definitely a first principle. Something I'm always looking at doing is reasoning from first principles rather than by analogy. You see so much muddled through the telephone of, somebody may hear something from Stoicism, but then it gets passed 30 times down, and the core message is still at the very, very beginning. Whereas if you start to know from the very beginning what is true and work your way from there, it just leads to much, much better conclusions than if you're just kind of reasoning from other people's logic all the time.
Reminds me of the telephone game we used to play in elementary, where someone would start a sentence, right? I was the guy that always intentionally screwed it up, right?
You would be too.
100%, without fail. Except for the one time when I wanted to throw everybody off because we've been doing it so many times, I actually passed the right message. Well, one time, you got to mix it up a little bit, otherwise people know what to expect, right? So
yeah.
The telephone game. That's great. So tell us what you're going to be offering and this is, I can't remember, it's something millennial, 7-figure millennial. Is that what the name of your new brand? Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that and your free group so that everybody knows, where they could join that too. And talk about like what reason. I get the reasoning, but what are you offering there?
Yeah, 100%. So I guess another thing I forgot to mention is that when I was working with Jonathan, he gave me the opportunity to create a product with him and launch it to his audience. So my first ever product we launched was a course called Ultimate Advantage. Launched it in January 2019. It made $45,000 in the first week that it opened. So it was incredible. And
Cool.
so I'm going to be completely transparent with what I got going on because I'm all for being vulnerable. I left Jonathan's company in May of this year. So I've been off on my own for 3 months now. I wrote a new book called The Magic Connection Method. I created this Facebook group. I'm just starting. So what is going to continue to evolve may be different for a few months from now. So like
Sure.
I am on a blank slate. I'm surrounding myself with the right people and I know what I need to do to create stuff. So right now it's just starting with a free group. I have an elite version of that group that started. I got a few founding members in there that are in a paid tier because you know the 80-20 rule. You got the people that join the free stuff, and then you got the people that really want to play. So those are the main things that I'm creating right now for Figure Millennials. Is the free Facebook group. I have an elite group for people that really want some skin in the game. They want to be surrounded with my content more. Other people that are like-minded and sharing those values that I shared. And so the two main things that I'm offering right now are the membership. I'm going to the Figure Millennials Elite. I'm going to be creating a lower tier membership as well for that. And then the last thing is I offer some coaching, but I'm starting to move away from the coaching model that was built off of the original course that I launched, because the original course I launched kind of shares my process for what we talked about in the very beginning that Terry resonated with so much, is how do you find somebody who's exactly where you want to be? How do you build up your personal brand? How do you reach out to them in a way that makes them want to work with you? And so that's what that whole course is about. But the more and more I do more introspection, I get so much energy from working with entrepreneurs specifically and serving high level businesses. So I'm more interested in focusing on serving high level entrepreneurs and then continue to create content for the 7-Figure Millennial brand. At least that's where my head's at right now.
Very
That's cool. I like it. And it's neat to have a path, and it's neat to go down it, and it's neat to adjust it as you go. And
Yeah.
Welcome to
We've all
entrepreneurship,
adjusted.
baby.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of life, yeah.
Have you guys ever
Yeah,
taken the
totally.
Colby or heard of Colby before? It's like a personality.
Like the assessment.
Yeah. So I'm like, it basically determines your preferred mode of taking action. And I find lots of entrepreneurs are really high on the quick start level. So like I'm an 8 quick start, a 5 fact finder, which means that I basically I want just enough information to go and start moving on something. And then I'm already gone. So that definitely is where I'm at right now. It's just like, let's figure out what works. I'm already building it. It's already done. Did this work?
Better way to go.
Something else.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely keeps you on your toes and it's a lot of fun.
You got to build the plane as you fly it. Otherwise, you're just not doing it right.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
too many people sit around and wait for perfection, and let's pretend
They don't take
perfection
action.
exists. Let's
Mhm.
pretend that's a thing. But then, great, whose perfection do we go for? Do we go for Janet's? Do we go for Brandon's? Do we go for Terry's? Because all those perfections are going to be very different too.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's an
Imperfect
interesting
action. It
thing.
makes, yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Well, and I've seen a lot of people where they build the entire thing in the back end, and then they're like, wait, how do we get people there? You know? So,
In my opinion, one of the most tragic mistakes you can make as an entrepreneur is building something that nobody wants.
yeah, you didn't even test it. You didn't even exactly.
So
Mhm.
that's why I'm a huge proponent of creating an idea. Like lots of the stuff that I've created, like I already have this group going that I already started a few weeks ago now. And it's like I got 10 people in there just because it just started. But I mean, I was using a Google Doc as my sales page. Like people overcomplicate things and try to build the whole funnel and stuff like that. And my favorite way to validate an idea, and you guys can tell me if you want me to shut up if we don't want to go down this.
No, keep going.
This path. But I just think that the best way to build and validate an idea is by asking people for feedback.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, when I ask you, hey, Terry, can you go check this out? You're going to read whatever I sent you completely different than if I said, hey, Terry, can you give me some feedback on this? Because just the way I frame that question, you're going to read it differently because you're expecting to give me feedback on the back end of it. So lots of the times what I'll do when I'm validating an idea is I'm a copywriter. I'm a copy dude. So like I'll write out a sales page on a Google Doc. I'll ask people that I think are the right fit for feedback on it. And if they resonate with it, then it's a perfect opportunity to be like, okay, I'm interested in creating this. And if I can get a certain amount of people together that want to actually make this happen, I want to go with it. So would you be willing to pay for it right now? And so I think that's the most important part is people will say it's a good idea all day long, but until they actually give you your credit card, it doesn't mean anything. So I'm always trying to get the credit card. And if they don't like it, after you ask for feedback, then it's a perfect opportunity to iterate and make it better for the next person that you ask. So that's just a little framework that I always use when it comes to creating and validating a new product is like getting it out there, getting people to pay for it, people that don't want it. How can you make it better for the next round?
That's an important point because the reality is, unless we're actually going to like taking a master's program and learning more at night, we as entrepreneurs aren't any smarter when we put something out than we were when we created it.
Yeah.
So we don't have any ability to see beyond what we've already seen. If we did, we might have done it differently. So getting that feedback, especially feedback from people that are your intended audience, it's the only way to go, right? It's the only way to learn. It's the only way to grow. And it's the only way to actually make it the best it can be. We can't create in a vacuum.
Yeah, 100%.
I think I have the book behind me. Will It Fly? There it is. Pat Flynn, Will It Fly? He has those methods in there. Exactly. Very similar on how to launch. And I'm sure, obviously, you know a lot about launching. So your program probably is going to be talking about a lot of that material, I'm sure, too. So
yeah, I talk a lot about in the Magic Connection Method, the book that I recently wrote. So for people that are interested in learning, especially in the COVID age, when I don't know, Terry, I'd be interested to hear how your networking, how it's impacted the in-person stuff. But I found that, connecting with people online is such a powerful way if you do it right, because I can open up my LinkedIn right now and have 40 connection requests that are just totally disingenuous. And you could tell this has been copied and pasted to a million people. So in today's world that we have such an opportunity to connect with people, but so few people understand how to do it the right way.
I agree. That reminds me of
nonstop.
LinkedIn messages. Oh my gosh, LinkedIn messages are just horrible lately.
I keep a folder just because I'm a nerd about it, but I keep a folder of bad outreaches so that I can give people examples of what not to do. So.
Well, on Instagram, I'm about to put up. It's not a dating service. Hi, how are you doing? Hi, how are you doing? Hi, and that's all they say. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you doing? Hi.
Yeah.
Like the copy paste, you know how you can hit the button, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Hi, how you're doing is a lot better than what they could say, if you think about it. At least less offensive, right?
That's true.
It gets old. So I agree. Well, that's great. Okay, so let's, Terry, any last questions from you? Let's finish.
I love the idea of going after the entrepreneurs. I've been kicking around the idea of starting a company called Seventh Gear Consulting, because I like working with folks that feel like they have that seventh gear, right? And those are the individuals that you really want to deal with, as opposed to folks that end up getting stuck in the mud or just don't move fast enough. So I think you've got an interesting approach. I think you've got an interesting methodology. It sounds like you've learned a lot because you studied from people who were doing it. And I can't imagine anything but success for you, dude. You got a ton of drive. I love it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so tell us, I want to know the group name, or where's the best, easiest way for people to find you?
Well, you can check out my site, brandon-fong.com, because there's a Brandon Fong that's sitting on my domain. I'll find him one day. So Brandon,
problem, hence the E.
E. And now you have Terry giving you a new middle name every single time you get on the show because of that.
Every time. Well,
so lesson. If you don't own your domain, go buy it right now.
Exactly. So it's Brandon-Fong.
Yeah, Brandon-Fong.com.
Got it.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I can give you guys any links there. You guys can email me. bf@brandon-fong.com is my email. If you want to join the 7-Figure Millennials Elite Group, or 7-Figure Millennials group, that's just a free one. If you just search 7-Figure Millennials on Facebook, you'll find the access to the group. But besides that, if you want to kind of find, I know we didn't really get a chance to talk about it yet, but if you want to figure out how I reached out to Janet and got on the show, and some of the other things that I did to get in front of Jonathan and connect with people, I detail my whole process of how I kind of get through the gatekeeper and how I cut through in these crazy times in my book called The Magic Connection Method, and that's at magicconnectionmethod.com. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's end also with that action step. I think we gave a lot of action steps already, but let's just finish with one. You can even repeat something somebody could do to even just move their business forward in the right direction in the next 24 hours?
I don't want to go I can give a really high level overview of the magic connection method, because that would be my next step. Is I said in the beginning, I truly believe that you are just one connection away from so many things. It just opened, the one connection with Jonathan opened just the floodgates for me. My first mentor was when I was 16. It's just like every time I look at an evolution in my life, it's been because somebody stepped in. And so like, if you can break down the doors and reach out to that person, it just will change everything. So really, really high level on how you can do that in the process that I use. The first part of the outreach is always, it's what I call the hook. So how do you not be like those LinkedIn messages that are just spamming people, right? How do you actually show that you paid attention to what they're doing, listen to their podcast, that, you like their LinkedIn profile or whatever the company is working on. If you have a mutual connection, those are all things that you can leverage in the very beginning. And then the next part is what I call the stupid yes. So I always like to come up with like 3 specific things that you could do to add value to them. And share that in the next part. And then the last part is what I call, it's what I learned from Chris Voss. It's called the no-oriented question. And so like that's the, I don't want to go too. This is a wrap up, and I'm giving more content here, but that's I'll make it quick. If you ask a yes-oriented question, people have a finite amount of yeses that they can give in a day.
Oh yeah,
because the more
that's
you
a
say
sales
yes,
technique. Yeah,
right.
Yep.
So the more you say, or it's even a misconception in sales, because they'll try to get yes momentum, right? Like getting you to nod your head all over the time. But if you ask a yes question, you have to give away time, energy, or effort for something. So it's a lot easier for people to say no to something if you ask the question in the opposite way. So if instead of concluding an email or an outreach, I always end with a question mark and like nothing beyond that, because like people want to see what the call to action is at the end. So if you ask a question like, are you interested? It's a yes oriented question. And then they have to say yes to something. Whereas you say, would it be a bad idea if, or would you be opposed to? Those are no oriented questions. Then it puts the ball in their court. Like, no, that's not a bad idea. Send me your ideas over. So high level, that's the magic connection method.
Very cool.
Find somebody that you want to connect with. Hook. How do you develop rapport with them? Something in common, a genuine compliment, make it as specific as possible. What are the wins that you can give them? I call it the stupid yes. And the best thing you can do is make there be a gap between the win for them and the amount of effort that they have to take to get that win. So like I will come up with 3 specific things that I could do for them. That's in the stupid yes. And the last part is the no oriented question. Would it be a bad idea if I sent over those ideas for you to check out? So that's the homework that I want to give to people is if you have somebody you want to connect with, use that formula and use that to multiply the amount of connections that you can get and the results that you can get within your business by just connecting with the right people online. You don't even have to put on pants. I might not be wearing pants right now. You don't know.
Don't make you stand up, young man.
That's
I'll
fine.
do it.
I got
Hey,
I got the workout pants. See, mine doesn't socks. So
I'm definitely not wearing pants. So
we don't want to know, Terry. We don't want to know Terry's end of things. But
it's true. You don't. Do me a favor, Brandon.
Yeah.
Thank your parents for us.
Awesome.
Go and tell them they did good. They did good.
I appreciate it. I will tell them.
that's awesome. Well, and you can reach out to Brandon-Fong.com. Pretty easy. And then Terry, why don't you wrap up the show?
Do the things. All right. So you have just finished listening to Business Growth Time. This is probably episode number 160-ish. And it was a good one. So find us over at businessgrowthtime.xyz. You can join our little Facebook group, or you can go listen to all the past episodes at businessgrowthtime.com/blog or even /podcast. Take your pick. Both of them lead to the same page, and you can look at all the cool conversations we've had with great guests just like Brandon Fong.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you guys.